Okay, so I want to start with this question. What do you want more of in your next job? And I want you to frame this in a way that's not just what you want to avoid, but what do you really want to move more towards? What's most important to you when you think about a career transition or job searching? And Brexon, welcome. We're just starting off with this question. What do you want more of in your next job? Okay, so think about that for a moment and want to have this discussion. I'll go ahead and let's see. There we go. I'll type it in the chat too. Okay, so what do you want more of in your next job, not just what you want to avoid? So I'll give you another 30 seconds to consider that. And I want to just have a brief discussion. And to do this in a way to get you already framed in terms of where I brought you here, you signed here, and we're talking about alignment. Alignment is what you want more of. And that isn't just avoiding the things that we want to get away from or avoid something that we've experienced in the past, but saying, what is most important to me? How can I find more of that? And so I'm already starting to get you in this framing and intention of how do I find that greater alignment as I think about what's next for me in my career. So that's the real hope. So anyone have thoughts here they want to share with the group? What came to mind?
I think I can start.
Yeah.
I think for me, making an impact is very important. So the work that I'm doing, I really want to see what impact that work does, right? To my customers or maybe to other employees of my company or whatever, basically the people who are using like the work that I'm doing, what's the impact? And a lot of times there is an impact, but it's not reciprocated, right? So I think for me, that is very important, right? Like seeing how my work is making a difference to the lives of people, or kind of if it's an enterprise application, then how it's making difference to the companies that are using the things that I'm working on. So I think that is something that fuels me, kind of fuels energy in me, and I think it just keeps me going. And when I see that is not happening, I think it's very difficult for me to kind of be that generating that self-motivation, right? Like, no, I know I'm doing some great work, right? Like I sometimes I think I look for that thing, which when I don't get, gradually my motivation starts dipping down and kind of I end up giving up. So
yeah, that's tough. And what that reminds me of, Vikas, is alignment is also very well correlated with engagement. There's a lot of surveys out there, and I would define engagement, like employee engagement, by people caring about two things. People are engaged when they care about what they're working on and who they're doing it with. Okay, and what I hear you especially thinking about, like that impact that you have, is really that connection for you about caring and being engaged in what you're working on and seeing, why that matters is really important to you. Yeah, very good. And by the way, as we share, I'd love to do just some real brief intros. So Vikas, since you just shared with us, can you share just a very brief, like 10-second, like who are you, where are you at?
Sure. Yeah, I'm currently a principal software engineer at Palo Alto Networks. I'm based at Bay Area, California. Had been into, I would say, software industry for now 23 plus years. Got a chance to work with some giants like Amazon and Microsoft prior to this engagement with Palo Alto Networks. So yeah, I'm here for kind of, I would say, again, hearing some great minds, kind of people with great mindset, and kind of just building some positive energy. So that's what brings me here.
Yeah, great. And also to facilitate connection, if anyone wants to throw in their LinkedIn links to connect with each other, feel free to do that while we're going through here as well, if you want to connect with each other afterwards. But going back to our original question, anyone else want to share? Maybe just get one more person. Anna, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I want to go with Vikas. I'm saying your name right,
Mhm.
Vikas? Yeah, it's I was saying, and Jeff, you're saying as well. It's about caring because
Mm.
I feel like people is our most valuable asset for a company, and sometimes I feel that people are treating like a
Mm.
number out there. So what I'm looking for, like in a different company, it's like a company that it really cares for the people and they don't treat the people as another number in there. And then finding some work-life balance, at least for me, because I do want to have that, especially for me being a woman, that it goes into another thing that I'm looking in the industry is just to support more professional women that is in the manufacturing industry, which is the industry where I am, where we see there's not a lot of there's women, but there's some way lack of support with the women. So that's what I'm looking as well.
Yeah.
And I'm just doing a big effort in here because that's I'm just putting an extra thing in there. Is like I don't like to talk about in front of people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's another thing that I wanted to enjoy this because I'm forcing myself just to start talking more with people,
Yeah.
being exposed there. So
Yeah.
if you feel like I'm talking a little bit nervous and
Yeah.
probably maybe my accent is a little bit more heavy, so that's the reason why.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
it is great on you, Anna, for stepping up and sharing with us and leaning into that discomfort that comes along with that.
yeah.
That's a huge piece of this process. So that's great for you to join with us and do that. So well done. Well, thanks for Vikas and Anna to share a little bit with us. And then final thing that I'd love for us to all do, just throw into the chat, why did you show up today? What's your intention? Okay. What do you hope to get out of it? Because this is meant to be discussion based. I don't have slides or anything like that, but I've got a few topics and maybe some things that we'll draw out together. But I really want this to be discussion based and allow us to adapt this to what you feel like you need. So the more you can share with me, then I can help with you to facilitate this discussion to be as useful as possible for all of us. Okay. Sound good? So share your intention. That'll also help you be looking for how can I get this? How can I make the most of our time together? And then just invite you to be present and attentive and participative like you've already been thus far. It'd be really helpful. Okay. So throw those into the chat. I'm going to check those out. Can you see the chat? Everyone good there? Know where to find that? You're in Google Meet. Sometimes people come over to Google Meet if they're used to Zoom or some other platform, like, I don't know where everything is. And so, yeah, just want to make sure you can find that. So yeah, just type that out and throw it in the chat. I'm curious what you have here. Give you 10, 15 more seconds to finish that up and submit that. What's your intention for being with us today? Yeah, Bart, very good. Wants alignment for future work. Find that good feet. Excellent. Good fit, not feet. We're not talking about feet today. Feet. Brexton, this is good. Going to be more focused and clear in job search efforts. Oh, it is so easy to go so many different directions and be like, yeah, I've got all day to work on the job search, and then bing, 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 squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. So many different things that can happen. Yeah. And Vikas and I have known each other for a few years now. And certainly resonate with this story a little bit. Yeah, it's hard to sometimes find that contentment and the motivation, and also working on a personal development piece. And so this is good. Hopefully, this is some new or different things, and always good to just refresh even things you've already known or learned and things as well. So this is good. Thanks all for sharing that, and hope we can make this our alignment discussion in alignment with your intentions. So, quick question: when we're talking about job search, what do you think is the average number of applications that a corporate job posting gets? Obviously, it can be huge, it can be small, it depends on the company and the role and all that stuff. But what do you, like, if you were to guess, what do you think is the average number of applications that a job posting gets? You can throw that in the chat, or you can just unmute real quick and shout out a number. Actually, small group, just shout out a number.
1 to 500.
1 to 500, Braxton? Okay. What do you think?
500.
500? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go with maybe around the same number, close to 500. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Cool. So you're all in the ballpark, and it's not, and obviously it depends on the role, like we talked about. It could be that, it could be more, like we've all probably seen roles that get in the thousands, right? You look on LinkedIn and it's like, hey, 2,000 people or 1,000 plus, I don't even know. I think it might cap the number, have applied to this job. When I looked at the data, the average across all job postings is 250. Okay. But obviously, maybe in the roles that you're looking at, maybe they're 500. We're just talking about all roles that we can see, and that was from a study from Glassdoor that they did. So when you think about this for a second, can everyone see my screen? Okay. So think about, there's kind of this job search funnel. We're talking about a typical job search funnel. On average, about 250 applications might get us 5 interviews and lead to 1 offer. Okay, that would be like an average experience. Can everyone see that? Okay, I'm gonna pin this while we're doing this so that you can see that a little bit better. Hopefully that helps. Okay, so yeah, it's kind of crazy. Now, I'm just going to ask real quick, where in this funnel experience is a very simplified, there's a lot of other things that go into putting in those applications and getting interviews and getting an offer. But where in that funnel do you feel the most stuck, or feel like you experienced the biggest challenge? Could it be, am I applying to the right places? Do I want to put in that many applications? Is it, oh, my interview experience is difficult, or it's maybe in between here, like, hey, put an application, but how do I actually turn those into interviews? Interviewing well so I get the offer. Where is it that you feel, and so obviously I just talked through a few of the micro things inside of this, but where do you feel like is the biggest challenge for you? Bart?
Oh, I'm feeling like I don't want to do 250 just to get one interview. So
yeah, I wouldn't want to do
that just seems
250
like
applications either. Yeah. And I have talked to people who are putting in like 50 applications a day. And that's the crazy thing, is like, this is just averages. These people, like people with master's degrees, who put in 50 applications a day, and they've done that for months. And you know what? Still 0 offers. Maybe they've had a few interviews. Okay. So like, I'm here to say that generally, I'm of the opinion that the spray and pray method of just throwing in a bunch of applications generally doesn't work. Okay. Especially since, if you didn't see the news, I think it was about a couple weeks ago, like the Bureau of Labor data or surveys, it's not BLM, BLS, I believe, federal group that puts out data on the job market and everything. They revised their job numbers from May and June, like one of the lowest down revisions that has ever happened. And not going to all the political stuff, like people got fired and stuff because Trump wasn't happy about it. But yeah, like the job market's tough, and so it's that much more of a reason where we need to do things a little bit differently. We're going to talk about that too. But yeah, I don't love the spray and pray approach. Any other thoughts here? Where do you feel like you find the biggest challenge in this funnel?
It just seems like if the goal is alignment,
yeah,
this approach doesn't seem, 250 applications by themselves is a daunting task, but to do 250 aligned applications seems like mathematically it just wouldn't be reasonable.
Yeah, yeah, and I would agree. And so I think I would argue, and you might argue with me, that to go the aligned path is actually going to completely change these numbers. It's going to reduce this, maybe even increase this, at minimum, change the ratios, right? So maybe we can get this down to 50, would get us 5 interviews. That's a 5x difference in terms of the rate of interviews, right? Yeah, that might mean you need to spend some more time on each application and connecting with people and other things too. And it's not that every single thing is going to work out and turn into an interview and turn into a job, but I've seen people where it's more like 20 and 3 interviews and a job, right? We would love to shift those numbers in a meaningful way. Would be the ideal. Absolutely. Okay. And I've seen people go like 25, 8 interviews and 3 offers. Like that stuff happens too. We would love to be working with multiple offers if possible, which gives us extra opportunities to find and filter for alignment as well. So good point there, Brexton. Yeah, so I think you just brought up the point, though, is that just throwing in all those applications generally works against our goal of alignment, because we're just trying to be everything to everyone instead of being a little bit focused. So I want us to think about this, like, okay, so what needs to happen to filter this out a little bit? I'm going to argue that one of those key things is going to be getting really clear on core values. Okay. And this is true, like at HireAligned, we work with companies to try and do this, get clear on their core values and hire in alignment with that. Now, for job seekers, we hope that they would do the same as well. Get clear on your core values, and when you can align with the core values of the right company, then good things are going to happen. But if you don't know what those values are, how can you even be in alignment with them? Okay. And if anyone doesn't know, not familiar with me, I've written a few books. One of those is The Intentional Engineer. I've done a lot of coaching and career development work with engineers in particular, but people across fields. And one of the things I do early on in here is give you a core value exercise. I've even got like a corresponding workbook. If anyone wants that, I might share the just let me know. I can share the link to the free digital workbook that will have that core value exercise in there if you want that. And I'll share a few more resources at the end too. So another thing, and by the way, like, let's keep this to 3 to, usually I say 5, like 7 is like max. You get too many and it's just like you can't even remember, and they overlap and things like that. So 3 to 5 is good. 2, I'm big on how do you identify what makes you different? Okay. How do you operate differently? And one of the tools I use to help people do that is called Genius Zones. Okay. And this is like, where do you excel, do things differently, and deliver like crazy amounts of value, and also find like joy and satisfaction in when you're operating in that way? Okay. And this can be like a single thing. It could also be a combination of factors. It could also be like, what about the environment helps you get in that space? Okay. So there's a number of different things. I've got a whole chapter on it on my book, but like, how do we find those genius zones? And maybe a simplified thing is like, what are unique traits that you bring to the table, right? That's a really simplified thing to think about, and that can be from your experience that you've done things or delivered things or worked on types of projects that very few people have, okay? Or you've got a combo of skills and technical abilities and soft skills that come in and help you see things differently and deliver value. Like, how do we identify those for yourself? because that you want to be in alignment with those. When you can work in your genius zones, that's generally going to be a good thing that you're going to enjoy. And it's going to be good to be able to communicate to potential employers. Okay. And see how those unique traits and genius zones that you have are in alignment with what they need. Okay. So that's kind of number 2. Number 3 is then kind of communication. In a work context. And I was kind of already getting there. So we might call this, like in the job search world, personal branding. Okay. And so this is like, how do you showcase all of these things, who you are, your core values, how do you show up, your genius zones and unique traits and skills that you have, and then communicate that in a way across different channels that helps people understand that. So yeah, LinkedIn and resume, networking conversations, like what's your elevator pitch? How do you introduce yourself in an effective way? Maybe beyond just, hey, I'm Vikas. I work for Palo Alto Networks. I've been in software for 20 years, which is fabulous and great. And I know a lot more about Vikas. Hey, hey, I'm Vikas. I'm known for delivering transformational software, being someone who cares deeply about the people that I work with and collaboration, and also providing great experiences for my family that I love. In fact, Vikas just had a cool experience where one of his daughters was working with him at Palo Alto Networks, which is pretty fun as an intern, right? If I remember correctly. So yeah, so
weeks ago.
Yeah, so like these are like, you do an intro like that, and that gets people to lean in a little bit more about like who you really are, right? What do you want to be known for? What do you really care about? And those sorts of things, right? Then like, oh, okay. So often we ask the question like, what do you do? And we can answer that question, but we can also answer it in a way like, who are we really? And yet you can still contextualize that for work context, but still bring a little bit more of the personal side into that. Okay. So that's kind of the personal branding aspect. How do we help people understand who we are? And just a brief thing, like I would define personal brand as like who you are what people know about you. And personal brand is the intersection of that. So our goal is to increase the size of that intersection as we work on our personal branding experiences, right? And you want that personal brand to reflect those things that you want that are in alignment, right? So the people who are in alignment are going to be attracted to those things and see that and be like, yes, that's what we need. That's the kind of person we want. That's our goal here. Does this make sense? Kind of these 3 basic things we want to set up and be clear on when we're looking for alignment. Thumbs up? Okay, cool. Now I've set that up for you, at least talking about these 3 things. And now the question is like, okay, how do I do this? So I'm curious, like when you see these things, I'm going to ask a similar question to what we asked earlier. What do you feel like is the biggest challenge here for you? Like, oh, core values, how do I identify those? There's like 50 I could choose from that I think are awesome. How do I dial that down? How do I identify genius zones? Okay, personal branding, that's a big thing. How do I actually do that? What's the biggest challenge for you? Or question mark? Yeah, Brixton.
I feel like it goes back, for me personally, it goes back to the original question, which is how do I get focused and clear on my job search?
Mm-hmm.
Or like, or I guess, so if I define those, here's my core values, here's my genius zones. The personal branding, I feel like it's difficult until there's a clear angle, I guess.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If it's not focused in a direction, then it's kind of like even somebody who, even a hiring manager that has a role that would be a perfect fit, how do you bridge the gap between like I prioritize integrity and people first, and my genius zone is like working one-on-one with individuals in a like a customer support setting? We'll see right there. That I just did the bridge because I like in my mind I'm like, what does this setting have to be? Like, oh, it's a customer support role, which isn't necessarily what I'm after, but like, I guess how do you bridge the gap between my genius zone and my core values to, you know, the position on a job listing? Because until you bridge that gap, they don't, like, even when I talk to people on the phone, they're like, okay, so like, are you looking for, like, just tell me what open positions you're looking for so I can see if what I know about.
Yeah, great. So Brexton, just real quick, if you can give us a little context, like how would you introduce yourself? Like what, like generally, let's start with the base stuff, right? And a little bit more about like, not just what you do, but who you are, those core values. Like how would you introduce yourself in this like personal brand context? How would we want to get to know you a little bit more? Just give it a try. You're just giving it a try. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is a safe place, I promise.
Yeah, no, I would love to. So for me personally, I am very entrepreneurial and have a background in sales, specifically in e-commerce, B2B sales. The last 3 years, I have worked as a founder or original member of 3 different startups.
Cool.
And each one has given me the opportunity to wear a lot of different hats and work in like a very high-paced and kind of unique environment. It's also been a very unconventional path. I've sold D2C. I've launched coaching communities and sold packages for coaching communities. I've sold large B2B multi-million-dollar accounts to multiple stakeholders. The one unifying thread has been like Amazon FBA.
Yeah, cool.
And so at this stage, I'm really interested in working with working in an environment where there's a lot of collaboration. And I just, the answer to your question, the first question is what are you looking for more of? And right now at this stage, what I'm looking for more of is the chance to collaborate with individuals who understand what success in a role looks like, and can help working with more, having more teamwork and collaboration with individuals who understand what success in a role looks like.
Yeah. So because you talk so much about collaboration, that might be one of your core values, things that you really care about, right? From a unique traits or genius zone perspective, definitely, I imagine because of your unique experiences going through multiple startups, wearing a lot of hats, we might put flexibility or adaptability in there, and probably an ability to kind of go from high level down to the details. Is generally, I find people who have experiences like that. So there's just a couple, right?
That's great. I would resonate for sure.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do is like just piece out some of these items, and yes, then you need to contextualize that in whatever we're shooting for, right?
Right.
So
I feel like that's the hard part, is like, okay, I'm really good at going from high level down to the details and seeing the whole picture. But then it's like, okay, that's great. So now what positions, what openings am I looking for, and what kind of things am I applying for?
Yeah. And that often is the challenge, or one of the biggest challenges of people who are kind of Jack or Jill of all trades types that can do so many different things, right? Because they're so flexible. That often is a challenge there. I was just talking to one of my clients yesterday who like I would argue he's kind of like a Renaissance man. Every time I talk to him, it's like different stories of different things that he's done. Like he was an executive chef, and he ran a gaming studio, and then he got into tech even when he was in like high school. He was like running all the IT for his high school when he was like 16. And then he got into big tech and networking, and became an engineer, and then he worked in like managed services and for an MSP and like a bunch of other things, and program management and global engagement and stuff. And so now, and on top of like the crazy amount of hobbies and other things he does too. And then he's like, well, I can do so many things, sometimes that filtering process. And he was just in a networking conversation the other day where it was like, boom, 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 all these different things that I could do. And they're like, yeah, now the tough part is like, how do we figure out where you would fit? Right.
Well, and which one?
And it's a real challenge, right?
Which one to like double down on? Because I've like sometimes
exactly.
you sometimes to bridge that gap, you like really need to commit to a direction and double down on it and push through the like initial inertia. So ditto to everything you're saying.
Yeah, right. So I'm just like saying, like, I see you, and like it's not uncommon. And how do we do that? There's not a perfect way. One framing that I like to think about this is like every stage of our career, like it's kind of like a little scientific method. We're just running experiments. Like think of it as like, there's a double down, but also like, hey, if I double down on this for right now, does that mean I need to go that direction forever? The answer is no. How can I run a small experiment to see, is this direction something I want to try? In the job search, I can say, hey, is this an angle that I want to try? Let's give it a month. And I want to try for this type of role, this type of company, whatever that is, and be a lot more narrowed again, instead of trying to be everything to everyone, right? Can I run that as an experiment? Okay. And focus your messaging, your storytelling, maybe you're posting stuff on LinkedIn, in addition to maybe a more focused resume. Maybe you find some events that are in alignment with that. Certainly your outreach and connecting with people in that industry or those similar types of roles to explore that more. It's going to be narrowed and focused in that direction. See what traction, what kind of conversations happen, right? They do or don't work. Okay, let's shift to, hey, I've got 5 other options in my bank that were possibilities. Let's try the next one. Which one to start with? Well, which one maybe an easy filter? Which one sounds more fun? When you think of it, if you were to flip a coin and land on that one, like which one would actually provide the most energy for you to get after? That's usually an indicator of alignment for us.
The 1 month experiment is that's very helpful to just like, because it's easy to like pick an angle and then go all in on it until you meet your first level of opposition where somebody's like, oh, but you didn't think about this. And like, that's actually not going to work. And you're like, oh crap. And then you kind of go back to zero, but just putting your head down and saying, I'm going to pick this angle and like push through oppositions, continue to keep an open mind for 1 month and then step back, like preset a designated time to put your head down and just go. And then preset a time in the future to like bring your head up and evaluate results and back. That's really useful. Otherwise, you can at the mercy of whatever comes back to you.
Yeah. And if you want to use numbers, you can put some metrics on that. Like, hey, okay, if I'm going to give this a real fair shake, what does that look like in terms of conversations I want to have? Like, we may not be able to control all the lagging indicators in terms of number of interviews, although you might want to track that too and offers and stuff. But can I track how many people did I reach out to? How many conversations did that land? Those sorts of things that you can control a little bit more in terms of your output. That would, and then what was the quality of those conversations around this topic and this industry that you're focusing on. On a larger scale, you can think about, hey, even if I do make a choice and I get into a new role, even that's an experiment. We're still always experimenting with alignment. Our core values may not change, but certainly our genius zones and unique traits as we gain experience shift and change, right? And some things that were exciting to us a few years ago might make us bored right now because we've leveled up in our capacities and things we can do. Right. Mm-hmm. So those things change. And so we're constantly having to adjust and run those experiments too. So, and you say, hey, life's changed or new season of life. Maybe my priorities have shifted a little bit and I want to try something different. That's fine too. It's another experiment. We shift and pivot. It's fine. Okay. Great stuff. Okay. What about the core? We start with number one, that core values idea. Is that hard for you? Is that like, cool, I've already got my core values, like all set up and I know what those are. I work on that, or is that difficult? Any thoughts there? Bart, go ahead and unmute for us.
I forget that I'm muted.
Okay.
I was looking, I was in your book. I think it's chapter 2. Maybe that's, yeah. Okay. Anyway, doing the core values, like it seems to be, you mentioned it's values and there's another word. Let me grab this. Nope, I didn't write that part down. Anyway, it was core values and something else, like how I contribute, or does the goal of the company align with my goals? Like, and
Yeah.
you have things like,
We'll talk about the word like congruence, which is very similar to the word alignment, right? Are you living in congruence or in alignment with the things with your values, right?
yes, yeah. Oh, I may have found it. Live in congruence. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have had that question.
No, you're good.
Oh
Anyway.
yeah. Oh yeah. You mentioned character traits or personal values. So that those seem like kind of two different kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah. They're similar when we're thinking about character traits versus like, and some of the words are synonymous. Where I was talking about like genius zones and unique traits, and those are maybe more on the skills and capabilities side,
right?
Or experiences when we're using that trait concept. But that trait, the word trait is a pretty flexible word. Right?
Yeah, definitely. So this isn't like skills. This is more the kind of person you want to be.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah. Well done. Yeah. So like I a few years ago went through a core values exercise, and I actually put them into they are actually on my wall behind me. As part of, I've got this larger like purpose statement doc right here, and I have 5, and I put it into an acronym that spells out gifts, so it makes it easier for me to remember them.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then like, hey, what are your core values? Well, okay, gifts, like growth, intentionality, and all these things, and I can kind of go through that. And use them as a both like, hey, what do we want to move towards? And they can act as a filter, like, hey, this doesn't work in alignment with my values. A couple different ways we can do that.
Yeah.
So
now, do you put in there things that you would like to work on, or things that are most important to you today, no matter if you have those traits today, or are they things that you're working on to obtain?
Yeah. Great question. I would argue that core values are more the things that you already are, whereas other skills are things like, hey, that's what we can grow into. Okay. Or these core values are things that you value deeply. Like you really, really care about as a filter for what's most important. Anyway, give you a couple more ways to think through that. So couple questions are like, hey, here's what might help to think, like, what's a real core value? Like, what's a core value that really must be honored when you think about a role that you would consider? Okay. Maybe a generic or common one, but one that really is quite important to a lot of us is integrity. Like people who, and a company that acts in integrity, they're not falsifying information, but they're also like, hey, trying to show up and do what they say they're going to do. from a company side and also a leadership side, right? Like, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to act this way. They don't just talk the talk, they also walk the walk, and that's a big deal for a lot of people, right? Okay. Even if it's not a stated core value, most of us are going to resonate with that, right? And so, actually, just when I asked that question, what comes up for you, Bart? Since we were just talking about this, what's one of your core values that you feel like must be honored when you think about what's next for you in a role?
Well, integrity,
Sure.
family, like life, right?
Yeah.
Not just employees, we're people.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think that was coming up earlier as well. Yeah,
good.
those two there are two of the best.
Yeah. Those are big. Yeah, that's great. And so that can act as both a function of how do you identify companies, and it's a proactive thing for you, and it can be a filter on the other side when you have conversations on your side. You're interviewing, but you're also interviewing them. Are they seem like they are in alignment with those values? Not just what they say on their website or on the wall, but the conversation you're having, does that seem to be indicating those things? Any other data you can find online, places like Glassdoor or other places, or if you know people in those companies, you can talk to, hey, what is this really like here? It's huge to be able to ask those type of questions. Okay. So we want to be choosing proactively, not just reacting. And then move through this to find more alignment, right? Okay. So why don't you think about this? We talked about it earlier when we were kind of looking at that funnel, right? Like, how do we change those numbers in a transformational way? And I think that one of the ways to do that is to like say, hey, to some degree, when we're job searching, we are playing a game. Okay, like there's a game to be played, and you have to jump through hoops in many cases, and it's obnoxious. Like putting in the applications isn't fun. To say, okay, if I'm going to really work on this particular role that I think is aligned, now I got to spend the extra time and like personalize the resume, and I got to find people to talk to and try and reach out to and all that stuff. But like, how do we change the numbers, change the game? So to put this in context, if anyone's ever read any of Malcolm Gladwell's books, written a number of books, one of my favorites of his is called David and Goliath. Okay. And he uses the David and Goliath story as a backdrop to say, hey, yeah, if you put the faith religious frame on it, yeah, David had the power of God on his side. And Goliath was an infantry person who had a sword and a spear in his hand. And David never got within distance of Goliath's sword. He stayed away. He was completely outmanned if he was going to go try and fight Goliath with the sword. And he took his sling, and he was basically an artillery guy, and he, slung a rock into Goliath's forehead. And because of that, Goliath never stood a chance, because David was never in striking distance of Goliath. It's an interesting take on that. The whole point here is sometimes the very things that are seeming disadvantages to us, maybe we can shift to be an advantage, because we have to think differently and do things in a different way. It forces us. Another story from that book is he uses the example of a middle school girls basketball team. Okay. And it was mostly filled with girls who had rarely, if ever, played basketball before. And so they had their coaches. One of the dads was a former NFL player, a great athlete, but didn't know a crazy amount about basketball. The other one was like a Silicon Valley executive tech guy who hadn't played much sports. They were an interesting pairing from the coaches, but they realized pretty quickly that if they were going to play the same type of basketball as all these other teams that had been playing for years, they were going to lose every single game. So they had to use their disadvantage and play the game in a different way. So what they did is almost all of their practices were spent running and conditioning. Okay. And then every game, they played a full court press, if you're familiar with that in basketball. All game, every game. Okay. So instead of, usually teams will, when they're on offense, if they score or they miss it or whatever, and the other team gets a rebound, they'll go back to the other side and let them come the whole way, almost the whole way, and then start playing defense. Instead, they're playing defense the entire court, which even the experienced players at that level, few of them were used to playing in a way that they had to advance against defense the entire length of the court. And so it actually frustrated a lot of the other teams. And so they got a lot of steals and they got a lot of layups. And they got all the way to the championship game with this team that had played very little because they had a seeming disadvantage, but they played the game a different way. So I don't know all the ways that looks like for you when we're thinking about finding alignment in the job search. There's a lot of different ways. Give you one example in job search. I just worked with a client. He just started a job a couple weeks ago. He's a guy who's a veteran in this field. He has like 50 patents as an engineer, but he had a disadvantage in that he'd never got a degree. And so he got filtered out over and over and over again because he didn't have that even bachelor's degree in his resume. And even though he's got 30 plus years of experience, it's crazy. And so he said, hey, like, I can't do this the traditional way, right? So we started, he created a portfolio, and he created one picture that had a bunch of, like, a couple dozen, like, engineering designs that he'd done, and he was able to post that on LinkedIn and a few other places. He started telling stories of some of the things that he'd done over the years, and that got different people interested in, like, okay, we need someone like that. And these are the types of people that wanted someone with those sorts of skills, that liked the stories that he was telling, and didn't care that he didn't have a degree, but they wanted someone who could deliver, which is absolutely something that he could do, right? And he just started a new job. I just checked with him yesterday, and he's like, yeah, I'm loving it. I'm deep into 2 projects, and I'm doing lunch and learn stuff for the company and all this other stuff. Like, he's loving it. It was a huge refresh compared to where he was at before. And so that's just one example of how do we do this a little bit differently. Okay. So telling stories, connecting with people who are in alignment, instead of just spraying and praying and hoping that someone calls you back and says they want to talk. How do we ask more people if they want to talk? Have informational interviews. There's a few different areas to think about that. So I want you to, so I've shared a few ideas, and this whole idea of, like, changing the game. When I have this as a discussion, what comes to mind for you compared to what you've been doing and maybe what you could shift to? How could you change the game that you're playing, even given some seeming disadvantages that you have right now? What comes to mind? Yeah, Bart.
I've often been kind of the lone shark, the sole developer, the only one working on projects and things like that. And I've been thinking about that lately. One of the things I would love to have is a team that I can bounce ideas off and do stuff like that. But I've actually thought, what if I contract? What if I contract and I teach companies how to use technology, how to set up a team inside to get places to get their own technology growth going, and take love working with people, and instead of working with them technologically, help them catch the vision and do the technology themselves and their own internal peaks. Actually, that second part right there, just like that, just made sense right now. But then do it as contracting and not have to go find a job. I go make a job and build it up in different companies, so that then I just support them and like that. And that would give all kinds of flexibility. It brings a lot of benefits that way. It brings its own challenges, right? You've got to constantly find clients. But with LinkedIn, word of mouth, and just telling the story differently, take all of that kind of looks like a disadvantage and make it a huge advantage. I love it.
I love that part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Brexton, any other thoughts there from either of you?
It seems like the unifying principle is focus on impact. If what people actually care, what employers actually care about is impact. And so if I'm in the same situation as your client without as many years of experience, I don't have a degree. And so just looking at ways to show impact instead of like there are check mark boxes that people assume correlate to impact, and then there's creative ways of showing impact more directly.
Yeah.
And what people really care about is the real impact, but they'll settle for an indication like a degree if that's all they have to go off of, I think, is what I've found. And it seems like your experience with that client confirms that. So yeah, for me specifically, what that looks like, I don't know yet. I'm gonna have to give that some more thought.
Yeah. Okay. Anna, any thoughts there from you?
Yeah, I think with Brexit too. I mean, I'll need to think about it more. Because,
Yeah, no worries.
that's a really good point that you brought up. But if I have an answer right now,
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I want to just share one more little tool that you might be able to use, especially in job interviews. Okay. So probably, and to find things that are in more alignment and also talk in more alignment with others. Okay. So probably most people are familiar with this as an acronym when it comes to behavioral interviews. Okay. The STAR method. Okay. This stands for so behavioral interviews are ones that are usually angled in terms of tell me about a time when. Okay. And so you tell a story in this structure. It's situation, task, action, results. Okay. That's pretty common. If you look up STAR interviewing format, you'll get probably millions of hits on Google. Okay. To add just a little bit of a layer of alignment, I like to add a T in front of it. And to use that versatile word that we were talking about earlier is trait. Okay. And what this does is it gives you the opportunity, instead of tell me about a time when you dealt with a conflict at work and how did you resolve that? Okay, well, when I was here, I worked this and this was the situation and my role was this and we took these actions and we resolved the conflict and everyone was happy in the end. Okay, cool. If instead you can also add a little bit of a trait, which is like, hey, how do you approach situations like this? Like, what's your way of doing this? What's your philosophy around these sorts of things? Okay, well, first of all, it's probably helpful for you to know that when I approach conflicts, I try and do that in a way that's collaborative, and I seek to really understand the other person, which really helps us get down to the root cause of what's really at the heart of the conflict, instead of just addressing it at the surface level. For example, then you tell your STAR story. Okay, so you're bringing to the surface in that conversation, this is who you are. This is your value when it comes to or trade or genius zone, whatever that is you're trying to highlight, that is probably something that they would want. And then your STAR story backs that up. So instead of just telling the STAR story and them having to extract that trait, be like, does this person have what we want? You get out in front of it, you say it explicitly, and then you tell the story that backs that up. And I found it to be a very powerful way of shaping things in a job interview. Okay, there's just one more way for you to communicate in alignment and to showcase those values in alignment with hopefully what a company would value as well. Okay, so hopefully one more tool in your toolbox. Brexton, or no, maybe he's talking to someone else.
Sorry, yeah, that was.
Oh, you're good.
Hang on just 1 second.
Okay, cool. Anyway, but as we wrap up here, well, real quick, any thoughts or questions on this as a tool? Just want to give you one more thing. 2 thumbs up from Bart. All right, can't ask for anything more than that. Just 1 thumbs up from Brexton and Anna, but we'll take it. All right, y'all. Thanks for being here. I want to just end with one final question, because I always want to invite you towards action as we have these sessions. And so what is one action that you're committed to taking in the next 48 hours, like today and tomorrow before we head to the weekend maybe, based on what we discussed today? What are you going to commit to? What are you going to do differently? What are you going to dig into? What are you going to try? What action are you going to take based on what we discussed today? Hopefully that gives you a little momentum as we go. So anyone want to share?
I can go. I am in my current situation. I've accepted a job offer that I am starting on Monday. It's not what I hoped to be accepting at the end of my job search phase. And I'm still very actively searching for, I think there's the potential for a much more aligned and higher contribution role, because I've had them before. So I'm trying to think how to apply this. I would say for me personally, I'm going to really focus on my controllables, which I think in this case is sticking to core values and what's the other term? My core values and genius zones, doubling down on core values and genius zones in my current role.
Yeah, good.
And viewing it as an opportunity.
Yeah, great. Anna, how about you?
So yeah, I've been thinking about it. So I think, yeah, I do have my core values defined, but I don't have the genius sign that you have talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's more like going towards defining that genius sign, and also just looking for different ways or how to apply it for different jobs without having to send out so many resumes. So finding like doing something different.
Mm-hmm. Good. Bart, any thoughts from you? What are you committed to doing in the next couple days?
Well, when I wrote down a bunch of not genius zones, core values, ended up with a lot of skills in there. And so, we came over a couple of actual core values, but taking those and putting them together, that's gonna, I think I've got a list of like 3 right here that I think are pretty high. I think that's it. And then you and I have talked about genius zones before and trying to figure out what that means in an ADHD brain.
Yeah, makes things a little more.
Oh, you guys have that too?
Yeah. So Jeff says, well, what do you just lose time doing? Where do you just lose time and you're just in the flow, you're zoned in? And I'm like, well, everything, because whatever I'm looking at, the rest of the world is gone.
Vanishes. Yeah.
It's gone. And so so I looked it up, and flow versus time blindness, 2 different things. Where in flow, you're actually aware of the rest of the world, but you have this time and you're just productive, which I don't know what that means either. So anyway, it's a fascinating difference.
Yeah, there's a fine line, and it's something that I want to think about more as well. But anyway.
I'm here to test on.
Yeah, cool. I shared a couple links in the chat for some resources. If you're not aware, haven't already taken it, HireAligned has created AI-driven survey. We do this to help companies find candidates that are more aligned, but we also have one that we open up to just job seekers, and it'll give you a report with some feedback based on your responses that might give you some insights on what would be most aligned, might help you find some genius zones and some core values. Takes 15 to 30 minutes, depending on how detailed you are. And so it's a cool assessment that should provide some value for you as well. The other thing is a tool that I created years ago that I still use a lot called my Career Clarity Checklist. It's written for engineers. We don't have to be an engineer to take it. Could still be some useful, just some quick tools. Definitely can find more clarity or alignment as you move forward in your career development experiences. So a couple free resources for you to check out there. As we finish off, any other questions or thoughts here for me?
Jeff, so for HireAligned, I was just talking to, I found this because of Matt Harrington.
Yeah.
And he mentioned that how can we help HireAligned? What's the main focus right now? Are you guys just looking for companies that you contract with to help them define their alignment?
Yeah. So what we do on the company side is we help them hire more alignment through. We have a survey on the company side and team side that does a kind of a culture benchmark. They input their core values, but then they also take a conversational AI-driven survey for a bunch of their team members, and it lets them know, hey, how are you actually living in alignment with your culture right now? So we measure culture as it is, not just what they say their core values are. And then when candidates take the candidate survey, when they open up a job role, they have candidates take a survey as well. And then it ranks them and gives them indications on how they align with the actual culture as defined by what they told us. And so, on the company side, it helps them hire faster and in more alignment to find people that will.
So it doesn't replace a tool like LinkedIn or Indeed or something. Correct. The company still like collects a bunch of candidates through those tools, and then they ask all of those candidates to take the survey.
Yeah, it just lives on top of whatever their
more data to work with
process is. Yeah.
Are there what are you guys finding are like the best companies? What are some of the attributes of an ideal company for you guys to work with?
Yeah, mostly it's just companies that actually care about intentionally building the culture is really what it comes down to. As far as industries, we're pretty industry agnostic. We worked with like the services, like plumbing companies and roofing companies, and also like dental clinics, also like engineering companies. So we worked across a bunch of different industries. We found it to be useful, but it's really more of a psychographic in terms of, do they care about intentionally building their culture as they hire the right people?
Understood.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah,
thanks for doing this,
helping us. Any intros to people who are like that might want to use the tool? Absolutely, we'd love to have conversations with. Yeah.
Awesome.
For sure.
Thanks, Jeff.
You're welcome. And good luck as you start the new role, and also continuing to figure out what's next on top of that. Thanks everyone for being here. This is awesome. Great discussion. Thanks for your engagement. And be in touch with us if there's anything we can do to help you individually or anyone else that you know with some of the tools we've got. Thanks for being here. Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.